As many schools were closed down due to the pandemic, educators tried to go with what they knew. They continued to try to just send content to kids. They continued to try to figure out what's a new platform that we can track the content knowledge that kids are acquiring. And most of those efforts really struggled. First, they weren't particularly effective. And second, they were not very enjoyable for young people. We heard a lot of pushback from parents, and educators found it to just be a mountain of work that didn't really have a whole lot of payoff. As by comparison, when you're supporting young people in developing their own interest projects, moving forward and focusing really on the relational aspects, how can I make sure to connect with young people to support the learning that they are interested in? That seems to me with really significantly more success. It's not a question of just piling on more and additional work. It's, are you going to try to shove a bunch of content in kids and hope that you have enough relational connection that they'll plod through it? Or are you going to develop a strong relationship, get to know the kid, try to help inspire, ignite, unleash them onto some things that they're interested in pursuing, and through that, get to some really deep, rigorous, and vigorous learning opportunities?
So how do we get away from a mindset of we got to have rules, we got to have such strict structure around kids, we have to keep them lockstep, get away from that industrial mentality of education and really develop an education system that is going to move us forward into the next millennium. But the issue becomes we have to deprogram students on school. We have to deprogram students and teachers on school and reimagine the way that it looks. It cannot be the same. If you really want to see kids thrive, you have to give them the steering wheel. It's a little scary. They kind of go like this, but they do learn to correct, and they are capable of such amazing things.
Our goal as teachers isn't just to teach students what to learn, it's to teach them how to learn. Their job is to think about, okay, what do I know about myself as a learner, and how do I figure out what's best for me so that way they can actually be at their fullest potential. In this time, students are having to learn about managing their own learning more than ever, because they're really distanced from the classroom in a way that a teacher isn't able to be there for all of the steps of learning. And so one of the key pieces is allowing students to both feel super engaged in whatever it is that they're learning so that they feel motivated to continue to do it.
Hello, I'm Rai, and this is my album White Bear. Music is a language through which I express myself to others. This project is my translation.
And the other piece is really being explicit about the kinds of skills that students are working on, not just the academic skills, but skills like setting clear goals for themselves and then reflecting on those regularly.
Early on, I was terrified to share my draft work. I didn't want to share something that was unfinished, and I wanted it to be perfect because it was so personal to me. The fear of my work being unfinished ate at my motivation. In some ways, this anxiety really pushed me forward, as I've never been so determined to create and finish something in my whole life.
Skills like how do we create professional quality products, looking at really high quality work, analyzing together with students what makes that high quality so that students are able to have a vision of what it is they're trying to produce, and that allows them to have more ownership of that.
What is the purpose of exhibition? Like, why do we do exhibitions?
To present our work to like parents and other visitors.
To show the significance or the reason we did a project and like the impact it had on either us or other people after the project.
Something that we learned that was important around the world, and then we wanted to share it to other people as well.
Or raising awareness, maybe, should we say?
Being able to reflect collaboratively and talking about how are they contributing to the group or not. Are we breaking down a complex skill or a complex project into smaller things? And students need to be aware that they're actually doing that, or else they're not going to be able to be successful to do it.
Students learn by questioning, grappling, failing, beginning again, and they learn through critique and revision. So educators can shape this path for self-management, self-paced checklists, routine check-ins with peers or the teacher to assess students' progress and process. And we know when it comes to learning, it's competence that builds confidence. So each iteration of success after struggle helps build students' capacity to navigate productive struggle and cognitive conflict. And why does this matter? If you think about everything that's going on in the world today, we want students who are able to problem solve, who are able to exercise their agency for the benefit of society. Like this, that's why it's important. We want as many students as young as possible being engaged citizens. So it's more than just a classroom exercise, it's life skills.
What's great about individualized learning and why it's been so impactful or important is that because they're in charge, they own their own learning and it's all them, it allows them to really speak to their strengths but also focus on their challenges and try to find ways to leverage those strengths to overcome those challenges. What I like the most is how I don't have to push or pull with students anymore once they start doing this, because they're so excited about whatever it is that they're doing that maybe they'll get stuck, maybe they need a little prodding on a specific part of it or a component that they're not spending a lot of energy or time on, but ultimately they do their work and they do it themselves, and they are tougher critics on their own work, they're harder on themselves, they are definitely more frustrated if they miss a deadline or have an issue. And so for me it was exciting to see that we stopped having those fights. And same thing was true with the students and their families, their parents, right? Because this is a big fight that happens at home where learning, you're trying to make sure that your student is getting done what needs to get done. But if they're not interested, you can fight all you want. That's not going to make it any better. They're not going to learn it more just because you've made them do it. That's not important. So letting go of that struggle really was an impact that I found to be incredibly positive.
One of the problems that we have is that our teacher training institutions, until very recently, at least in my opinion, have put out this myth that a teacher is supposed to know everything, right? That you're the sage on the stage, and if you're in front of a class, you better know how to answer their questions, right? And in this type of authentic research, nobody knows the answer, right? Including the teacher. So the first thing that has to happen is that the teachers don't look at themselves as that sage on the stage, but as the guide on the side, and that they become co-learners, and that the students become co-researchers with them and with real-world scientists if they're involved in whatever way.
Lexi, who do you think knows more about rocks right now, me or you?
You.
No, you. Do you think I've done any research on rocks? No. So am I working on being a genius on rocks? No. So you are way smarter about rocks than I am right now.
So it's really a changing of attitude on the behalf of the teachers, that they don't have to know everything.
I was taking home huge amounts of work and doing curriculum development and grading on a daily basis when I was, teaching core content. But then once I started doing this, all of the work took place with the students. And so yes, you spend a little more one-on-one time with every student, but by the same token, you're not spending hours and hours developing curriculum, making sure you have amazing videos and ready to go. At the most, in terms of preparation, you're helping students find good resources and helping them come up with different templates or find good sources for something they're researching. But ultimately, most learners can do that for themselves, even at a very young age, right? We know now that, and all the research is showing us, that pretty young students can tap into what's available online, and they can find good resources, and with a little more purpose and a little more heft to what was behind it. Like a 5-year-old can design a study if you let them. You just have to kind of give them some of the basics and help them figure out how to do it and some of those processes. But I think that we have not done a good job, especially in the US, we have not done a good job recognizing the power of the curiosity, the creativity, the critical thinking that is naturally occurring in very, very young people.
They're my favorite dinosaur and I really want to learn about them. Cheetahs are so fast and I like eating meat so the other day. I really like cats. I even have one.
I feel like a lot less kids would drop out because I know Like at Pocahontas County, some kids are like, oh, I'm wait till I'm 18 and I'm dropping out. And it's like, well, if that's what you want to do. And I see why, because they're forced to learn certain things that aren't as interesting to them. Whereas like when the boys can take carpentry, they do great. And you're like, well, who is this kid? He's not that kid in math class. But I think if you were able to learn whatever you wanted to learn, that kids would show up to school more often and hate it less and behave better and not drop out.
A lot of the tools and practices to get started are really focused on or based in just identifying students' passions and having them do a lot of reflection and a lot of those conversations of what's it been like for you? What's learning been like for you up until this point? What are you interested in? What subjects worked? What teachers worked and why? What were the different things that got you excited about it? What was frustrating? So those getting to know you questions and conversations are a big part of it. Every professional development session, plus every class I've ever taught, I start with this thing I call the list of lists. And it's just a list of questions, what are your top 5 favorite priorities or values? What are your favorite things to do, your top 3 passionate pursuits? And you can take that list and make it your own as an educator, but just giving anyone a chance to answer those questions of like, what are you thinking about right now today? And ultimately, you can find connections between almost anything in the world and find a way to marry someone's passion with what they need to be learning or what they need to be focusing on. And I think that's something that people don't necessarily realize about individualized learning. Every student I worked with had a different core credit that they were trying to get, a different class that they were trying to have. And once they developed what that curriculum was going to be, they also then had to define what essential skills, what outcomes were going to be there, what was going to be happening that would be something they could put forth on a transcript. They came up with a title for the course that was a transcript worthy, title and all of that. And the evidence of learning was all based around the things that they needed to do, but it was still born out of something that was interesting to them. And that's, I think, the most important part of individualized learning, is that it comes from trying to find access to learning by tapping into human passion, because we all have it.
Like having school personalized to what you want to do, that's passion right there. And passion makes people want to focus, makes people want to do what they feel like their purpose is to do.
At the top of my list is teaching kids how to ask interesting questions. Asking questions to me is the lifeblood of learning. Like you're asking a question to do this piece of work that you and I are about, But in a typical classroom setting, you get to ask one question and you don't get to refine it. And some kids won't even raise their hand because they're too embarrassed. Other kids make fun of them later, how that goes. And so you need to create a safe space and teach kids to ask really interesting questions.
Well, for me, fostering student inquiry is such a powerful lever for student engagement and deep learning. And so there's lots of different ways to create the space for students' authentic wonderings and use that to develop curriculum. So a really small version of it is like a Think, Puzzle, Explore. You just simply ask students, what do they think they know about a topic? What are they puzzling about? Or what are the wonderings that they have? And then how would they go about exploring those wonderings? You could do a deeper project design around student wonderings, giving students opportunities to share what they're wondering about the topic your project is about, and then giving them the voice and choice to actually explore those more deeply throughout the project. And you can think about intentionally creating spaces within a project where students will actually delve into something that they've chosen to delve into, as well as choosing a product that they want to do, right, that they want to create. And so those kinds of choices allow students to feel ownership and motivation to actually dig into the work. And so the most deep version of that could be a passion project where students are actually really exploring a topic that they have chosen themselves, that they're really interested in, and then going really deeply into it with the goal of sharing out what they've learned with the whole class at the end. And that is really beautiful because you can really open it up to whatever students are wondering about, and it cultivates a sense of curiosity as part of the culture of the classroom.
We're going to have to ask them what's on their minds. We're going to have to ask them what they're curious about. Maybe have them keep a question journal, which is something I've advocated for some time, where they write down their questions, their issues, and their concerns, and give them time to do the research around the things that they care most about. That's how we engage kids today. Motivation, intrinsic motivation matters most. And we have to build on the intrinsic motivation all kids have.